Hello everybody, this is Yoko's Anime Reactions, and let us see, I bought 2 more books. 2 of them never heard of before. One is a romance one, called My Happy Marriage. And this one, well, it's an interesting one. The Undead King's Reign of Peace. Let's check this one out. I think you guys would like this one more. I'm a little iffy on uploading anything. No thank you. Let's see. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Prologue. The night she met death. Death. That which comes to all living things without discrimination. The end of life. Mira, a white-haired village girl just over 12 years old, was no exception. She lay incapacitated on a crude bed in a pitch-black room, her breathing labored. Several green, almost mold-like blotches covered her scrawny body. Ooh. Oh my god. Dang. Hang on. It was the green rot, a disease that first manifested as green splotches on the skin. As it progressed, extreme fever and pain drained the victim's energy until their body finally rotted away and expired. Ugh. Doesn't sound like a very pleasant way to go. So ruthless was the illness that only the most powerful healers could cure it, and because it spread through the air, many feared they would contract it. Mama. Mira cried for help in her delirium, but no one came to care for her. A few days earlier, her mother had told her she was heading to the city to seek help. She left, never to return. Mira hadn't been abandoned. Her mother had pushed her own disease-ravaged body to its limits in the hopes of finding someone who could save her daughter. So she had gotten it too. In the hopes of finding someone who could save her daughter, but the royal family's soldiers that killed her on the way dispatched her to prevent the spread of the disease, which I can understand that, because if it spreads through the air, that's kind of like the issue with COVID. Wish y'all would be quiet. At least in the hallway. This was the Erythron Kingdom. A small country with a population of less than 100,000. They lacked magic users skilled enough to cure the green rot, and so had no recourse but to kill anyone suspected of carrying the disease to reduce the terrible loss of life. Obviously, a mere village girl like Mira had no way of knowing any of this. She didn't even know that her mother had already departed for the afterlife. All she knew was that extreme pain continued to gnaw at her. Somebody... Not a single villager rushed to her side as she begged for help. The green rot had already devastated the populace of Creo Village, once home to at least 80 people. Now there was no one left to help her. So what, the whole village was destroyed? Wow, that sucks. The frail elders had been the first to succumb. Next, the royal military had killed the local leaders who'd gone for help. The younger villagers who'd heard about the incident had fled into the forest to escape, but had died of starvation or had been attacked by ravenous wild animals or wicked monsters, never to be seen again. Some had been so consumed by despair that they'd taken their own lives. Parents had toiled to care for their sick families, but they'd expired before long as well. In the end, only children like Mira remained, their youthful vitality prolonging their suffering. By the time the moon fell and the sun showed its face, most of them would have breathed their last. I can't. Mira gripped the bed weakly, delirious from pain and fever. What little strength left in her hands came from the fear of her looming demise, or perhaps the agony of knowing she could do nothing to prevent it. Just as her eyes began to shut for the last time, the front door creaked open. Mama? Tears spilled from her eyes and she summoned her remaining strength to turn towards the entrance. But what she saw there, raved in the pale moonlight, was not the figure of her mother, for whom she waited. It wasn't even human. If you had only a single word to describe it, you might say that death itself stood there. Cloaked in a black robe that melted into the darkness of night, only its white head stood out clearly. There were no eyes in that face, no nose, lips, ears, eyebrows, or even hair. It was a bleached white skeleton. This lifeless symbol of death gazed at Mira with eyes like pale blue flames set in its sockets. Mira sighed feebly in understanding. The time had come for her to leave this world. The skeleton moved, its robe fluttering around it. It wasn't carrying a large scythe, but it looked every bit the part of the Reaper from the stories Mira had been told. Yeah, that's what you think of when you think of the Grim Reaper. A black-robed skeleton carrying a scythe. That's why she wasn't frightened when it walked all the way up to her pillow. Rather, she smiled happily. Kill me. She begged for an end to her suffering, in a voice so clear she surprised herself. Harvesting human souls and carrying them to the afterlife was the Reaper's responsibility. Surely it would put her out of her misery. But the skeleton shook its head in response to Mira's request, refusing. I am terribly sorry, but I've sworn to never take a human life again. Again? Who did you take before you decided this? I'm guessing someone they cared about? The skeleton's white teeth clicked as it informed her in a deep, calm male voice. Why? Asked Mira, clinging on. He didn't respond. Instead, he slipped a hand behind her back and raised her into a sitting position. Then he pulled a small bottle from thin air, removed the stopper, and brought the bottle to Mira's lips. Drink, he commanded, tilting the bottle and pouring a bitter liquid into Mira's mouth. Lacking the strength to resist, she gulped it down. At this, he nodded in satisfaction and then laid her back on the bed. You'll be all right from here on. Your fever and pain will be gone by morning. Huh? Mira cried out loudly, surprised that she had this much strength left. She turned her attention to her body again and noticed a slowly growing warmth in her stomach, perhaps from the liquid the skeleton had made her drink. Excuse me. But it wasn't a bad feeling. In fact, it was refreshing, like a gentle flame was purifying the decay from the green rot. What was that? A potion created from the bone marrow of a dragon. Even the blotches will fade from your skin in a few days. Mira was dumbfounded. The skeleton gently stroked her head with a hand that was literally bony. All at once, sleep overtook her, but it was not the eternal sleep that had threatened her moments before. Rather, it was a gentle sleep that promised she would wake again. Why did you save me? No sooner had the words escaped her mouth than she slipped into the world of dreams. When she was younger, Mira hadn't minded being stuck in bed with a cold. Though not being able to play outside with everyone had been sad, and she had felt guilty about not doing her chores, she always had one thing to look forward to. Okay, here's your medicine. Her mother brought a steaming wooden cup to Mira in bed. Inside was powdered chamomile dissolved in hot water. It had a particular smell, and Mira disliked the taste. It's yucky. I don't want it. I don't blame her. Nobody likes taking medicine. Even back then, I'm sure it was worse. Don't be so stubborn. Her mother stroked Mira's head even as she lightly scolded her for refusing the medicinal drink. If you drink it all up, I'll let you have a spoonful of honey. Really? As if on cue, her eyes shone. Normally, something so sweet and precious was reserved for consumption only during the spring and fall festivals. A chance to enjoy even just one spoonful made drinking the disgusting medicine easy. Definitely. But if you're that full of energy, maybe you don't need the medicine or the honey. Mira quickly snatched the cup from her mother, who was teasing her for forgetting her fever and getting so excited. She blew on the hot water to cool it, then managed to power through the strong bitterness and finish it off. Ugh. Good job, Mira. She scrunched up her face, and her mother stuck a spoon of the shiny golden honey she had been waiting for into her mouth. Sweetness exploded, washing over the bitterness of the medicine that had tainted her tongue. I'm glad I caught a cold. The thing this child says. Smiling at her daughter, wearing her heart on her sleeves, her mother poked Mira's forehead. Though raising her daughter by herself meant that she was usually busy, Mira's mother always stayed by her side to care for her when she was sick. The sweetness of the honey made that time together all the sweeter. Mama? The dream from which Mira woke was so nostalgic and gentle that it made tears flow from her eyes, which was now fixed on a ceiling when she recognized. Is this the village chief's house? Confused, she got up and looked around. A number of simple hay beds were laid out in the large room, and on them slept her friends. the other village children. Oh, so some did survive. Everyone! Mira cried in a panic to inspect each of the sleeping children's bodies. They were still faint green blotches on their skin, but their breathing was stable and they looked calm as they slept. Thank goodness. Mira let out a sigh of relief and sat down. They must have all been given that strange liquid, the potion, and had their lives saved. That's right. Who was that person? That walking skeleton, the one like the Grim Reaper. Assuming she hadn't been hallucinating on her deathbed, he was undoubtedly the person who had saved their lives. Or the skeleton who saved our lives. Puzzled, Mira thought it over. He wasn't human. He must be an undead, a type of monster the village elders would talk about. She would soon learn that he was, in fact, the incredibly dangerous Undead King, an undead witch, intelligent equal to or above that of humans, with enough magical skill at his command to level an entire mountain. That's very intimidating. But I was always told to book it if I ever saw a monster, because they were unpredictable and attacked people. She'd never once heard about a monster saving people instead. While she sat there confused, the other children started to wake, perhaps roused by Mira talking to herself. Mira? Huh, I thought I was a goner. It doesn't hurt. What happened? Unlike Mira, it seemed that the other children had been unconscious and didn't remember the skeleton making them drink the medicine. They were all baffled to still be alive. Even so, huge tears spilled from the corners of Mira's eyes at the sight of her friends in good health. Thank God you were all saved. Hey, don't go crying now. Torio, a boy the same age as Mira, patted her shoulder and tried to cheer her up. Yeah, thanks. Sure. Mira wiped her eyes and smiled, and Torio blushed and looked away. Aww. Amid all this happiness, one girl suddenly murmured, Hey, what about Mommy and Daddy? Oh. Mira's expression clouded over and she fell silent. There was likely no one else alive besides the 9 children in that room. That meant the girl's parents, as well as the other children's parents, siblings, and even Mira's mother, were gone. But the truth was too terrifying to admit. Unable to dodge the question, she instead sat there opening and closing her mouth wordlessly. Just then the door suddenly opened, and the black-robed skeleton appeared. Eek! Oh, monster! The other children screamed and ran to the far corner of the room. They clearly hadn't seen him before. At a loss, Mira choked on her words. She wanted to stand up for the person who had saved their lives, but she didn't think the other children would believe her at all. Still, she couldn't just let things go on like this. Everyone, it's okay, calm down, she said half-heartedly, not believing it would work. Just as she started speaking, her stomach let out a cute little gurgle. Now that she thought about it, she had spent the past few days in bed, and there hadn't been anyone to take care of her. Save for the water and the honey that her mother left beside her pillow, she had nothing to eat or drink the entire time. She must be hungry. She looked down at her body again and saw she was as thin as a skeleton. If the potion the skeleton made her drink hadn't worked, she probably wouldn't be able to speak right now. I'm hungry. The other children sat down, the sound of Mira's growling stomach reminding them all of their own hunger. The skeleton had been watching in silence, but now he clicked his white teeth in a smile. Your hunger is proof that you're still alive. All right now, I've made some porridge for you. Please come along, everyone. He waved his hand, urging the children to follow. And all silent. All the children remained silent, confused by the terrifying Reaper-like visage with his incongruent kindness and politeness. Out of all of them, Mira was the first to cave to the smell of the porridge floating in from the hallway, before she realized that she was swallowing back drool and standing to follow. Hey, watch out. It's all right. Torio grabbed Mira's hand to try and stop her, but she smiled back calmly. This, nice man could have killed us already if he wanted to. It seemed peering into the abyss of death had granted her a strange kind of courage. Based on the skeleton's low voice, she was certain he was a man. She had no idea how old he was, and therefore wasn't sure how to address him. Insisting it was safe, she pulled on Torio's hand instead. She turned back to the skeleton. You won't kill us, will you? She asked. At this, the skeleton opened the front of his robe to show his empty abdomen, and he laughed. I'm not in the habit of fattening up children to eat them, don't you worry. Mira wiped away a tear, even as she chuckled, remembering how her mother had told similar fairy tales. She waved at the other children, who were frozen in uncertainty. Come on, it'd be pretty stupid to die of hunger after getting saved. In fact, it would be excusable considering all the villagers who weren't have been so lucky. Mira defiantly walked into the hallway with the skeleton. Unable to beat back their appetites, the other children followed along, albeit hesitantly. The skeleton led the children into the living room. Their village was so small it didn't have an inn. Instead, they used this room to double as lodging for any visitors they might have. For this reason, the village chief's living room was larger than any other houses and was furnished with a large table. Atop it now sat bowls of delicious steaming porridge, exactly enough for the children. Yay! I do apologize, but as I lack a tongue, I cannot guarantee it will be to your taste. The skeleton showed them his empty mouth. But the starving children didn't listen. Their previous suspicion had completely disappeared in the face of their overpowering hunger. They all reached for the dishes of porridge in front of them. Ah, it's hot. No need to rush. There's plenty more left. He smiled as the children wolfed down the food. The blue fire that made up his eyes narrowed in a smile, and he brought along a pot holding seconds. Mira looked at him sideways as she shoveled porridge into her mouth. Yummy! This was perhaps no seasoning more delicious than an empty belly. The porridge was bland, nothing more than wheat boiled in water, but at the moment it was more delicious than freshly baked bread or roast chicken. Before she realized it, she was crying. After the children had multiple helpings, the skeleton decided that their stomachs were most likely feeling better. He slowly started to speak. Well then, I suppose I start with introductions. My name is... what was it again? Huh? The skeleton tilted his head in confusion, and Mira copied his motion exactly. She felt that maybe he was cracking a joke to make them feel more at ease, but she also sensed a sort of seriousness. Like he hadn't been called by his name for so many years that he honestly forgotten it. She couldn't very well poke at him with an insensitive question. In place of Mira and the other children, a woman's voice broke the silence first. Oh my, it must be vexing losing your marbles as you get older. Who's that? The children jumped and looked around as the black shadow leaped onto the table. It had glossy black fur and golden eyes like moons. Did that kitty talk? Asked Mira. If a skeleton can talk, surely a cat can, replied the black cat, who suddenly appeared as Mira blinked in surprise. The cat curled up on top of the table. Despite having never once lost his gentle demeanor before this, the skeleton spat at the cat upon seeing it. Aren't you the one who should be concerned about dementia? Do you see this young and lively body, or are your eyes rotten? Oh, my bad, you don't even have eyes left to rot. While the skeleton still spoke politely, he and the cat glared at each other, sparks flying. Mira realized the other children were scared by the two of them, so she hesitantly called to them. My apologies. Please pay her no mind. He's right, I'm just a spectator, don't mind me. Uh-huh. She couldn't tell if they were on good terms or not, so she could only respond vaguely to the strange skeleton and the cat. While she did that, the skeleton turned the conversation back to its original course. About my name. Let's just go with Terios for now. For all they knew, it could have been a fake name he came up with on the spot, but he didn't give them any time to question it. Instead, the skeleton, now Terios, pushed on with what he was saying. People succumbed to famine and war every day. Mira and the other children had almost been among them. In this world, death was so close as your next-door neighbor. However, I cannot abide it. I wish to create a peaceful world where people don't perish before their time when they aren't killed in battle. Oh my god, that's look at that face. That face. I don't know why, but that makes me laugh. It was almost like some sort of bad joke that this skeleton, the spitting image of a reaper, the very symbol of death, would want a world where no one died unnecessarily. But Terios was earnest as he continued his declaration to the children. I will, without fail, bring to life a peaceful world that will continue for a millennium. That's why I would like you all to feel at ease. He smiled with a clack of his teeth. Yet the dreams he spoke of were far too grand for Mira and the children to keep up with. All they could do was sit there in bewilderment, their mouths hanging open. A peaceful world that continues for 1,000 years. While they weren't rich, their lives had been calm and without strife, but the village life they thought would continue forever had quickly crumbled in the face of disease. Mira had been lucky, her life had been saved, but even if she returned to her previous life, she would be plagued with fear and uncertainty, a fear that everything might collapse without warning. That's why Terios' vision of nigh eternal peace sounded so amazing. How wonderful. Yes, that would indeed be a wonderful world. Terios smiled back, jaw clicking as the words tumbled from Mira's mouth. This was a moment she would remember until the day she died. The moment her fate crossed with that of the Undead King. How long have I been recording? Let me see. I can continue a little longer. Chapter 1. Drastic times call for drastic skeletons. Oh god. After Terios finished his introduction, he sat quietly in his seat while the children told him their names. I will finish cleaning up. Please go have a rest in bed. Though the potion had cured the disease and their empty stomachs were now filled with porridge, their bodies were thin and frail after not eating anything for days. They weren't fully recovered. In fact, the children were already rubbing their eyes sleepily as their bodies calling out for a rest, despite the fact that they had just woken up. Thank you. We'll go sleep. Far from being afraid of Terios, the beautiful, if gaunt, white-haired girl seemed somewhat friendly toward him because she had been conscious when he saved her. She bowed her head, then pushed the other children's backs to urge them to the bedroom. Terios watched them go, then opened the front door and stepped outside. I saved 9 children. I suppose that is a lot, considering, he muttered to himself, looking around the village. Until a mere 2 weeks ago, this small farming village had carried on peacefully. Now it had transformed into a hell filled with countless green-spotted corpses. The corpses directly exposed to the early summer sun were in horrific condition, rotting with insects writhing over them. He couldn't let the children see that. It's times like this when I'm glad I'm a skeleton. Terios' teeth clattered as he laughed. As was plain to see, he lacked both nose and stomach on top of being undead. The stench of the bodies would not cause him to vomit, nor did he risk contracting the disease. But the green rot. He gathered the fallen bodies from the houses and carried them to an open space that looked like a cemetery with little ways from the village, a finger on his chin as he thought. The green rot spread through airborne transmission, and anyone infected died within 10 days, so if they didn't receive treatment, it was one of the deadliest diseases around. However, because symptoms developed quickly after infection, people swiftly realized they were contagious and avoided spreading the ailment. On top of that, the pathogen had a fatal flaw. With a few extremely rare exceptions, it couldn't infect anything besides humans. For that reason, I thought I had eradicated it 200 years ago. My, aren't you full of yourself? Out of nowhere, the black cat jumped on Terios' shoulder and replied to his conversation with himself. Don't you think a human trying to destroy a disease that's death incarnate is a bit like picking a fight with Pluto himself? If that's what it takes to create a peaceful world, I will fight even the gods. My, how scary. So, what kind of gods exist in this world? I'd love to know that. He spoke seriously, but the black cat wiggled her whiskers in a laugh. Though his body should have lost all ability to feel pain, he felt a headache come on as he watched her. What do you want? If you're not busy, perhaps you could keep the children company. They're all sleeping like the dead. Please choose your words more carefully. If he had arrived only a few hours later, the children really would be dead. It was no laughing matter. As Terios chided her, she smiled cruelly and said, But it's a good thing. What exactly? Finding such a convenient little village. Lady Luck must have blessed you indeed. I'm sure you meant to say cursed, he replied unhappily, finding the comment of her joke too distasteful. But the black cat didn't relent. But isn't it true? There's no one better suited for you to bring into the fold than some poor children who are waiting for someone to save them from a horrible disease. Terios shut his mouth. The black cat spoke the truth. He needed people to accept his existence to bring about a peaceful world. But undead were normally seen as evil monsters, and he was an undead king, a being powerful enough to destroy an entire country. Typically, it would be impossible to get people to accept someone like him. But that was just it. It was only impossible under normal circumstances. Extreme situations were an entirely different story. When pushed to desperation, people might beg for salvation from anyone, whether from God or demon. They didn't care. The weak might even cling to a wicked undead creature. I was thinking more along the lines of some citizens suffering extreme taxation from their lord. Terios sighed. Even if he hadn't foreseen stumbling upon a village on the brink of destruction from the green rot. It's convenient indeed, said Terios, so convenient that people might falsely accuse me of spreading the green rot myself. If Lady Luck, or whatever you say, is truly involved, then I fear she's toying with me. And how about you start over somewhere else, suggested the black cat, but Terios shook his head after a moment of consideration. No. There is likely no location better suited for the start of my plan. They were currently in the northwesternmost part of the continent of Trachea, within the borders of the Erythron kingdom. Tall mountain ranges shielded the northern and eastern sides of the Erythron kingdom from outsiders. Sea dragons inhabited the ocean that bordered its western side, making travel by ship difficult. That meant it was only connected to other countries by its southern swamplands. Such geography made the land challenging to invade and easy to defend. As my plan advances, some will wish to destroy me. When that time comes, I will not stand for attacks from any direction, he said. Fighting a war on all sides was the height of foolishness. Tyrios knew deep in his bones that limiting battles to a single front and aiming for a swift resolution were the most important things in a war. While the Erythron kingdom is naturally protected on all sides, this also makes expanding its territories troublesome. Nevertheless, I think its advantages outweigh its disadvantages. With that in mind, he used an illusion spell to visit the kingdom in the guise of a human. While gathering information inside the country, he heard about Creo village being threatened by the disease, which is how he ended up here. I've experienced enough plans going awry in life to suspect foul play in any situation where coincidences come together so conveniently. After pausing for a moment, he added, I'm just putting it out there, but it wasn't me. I believe you. While talking with the Black Cat, Tyrios gathered the dead bodies from the village into the cemetery. There were 42 in total. About 30 of them appear usable, he mused. If that's not enough, why don't you go pick up the bodies of the people slain by soldiers and monsters? I don't think that will be necessary. There are 9 children. 3 per child is almost 2... Wait. What are you talking about? What is he getting ready to do, guys? Sensing something behind him, Tyrios whipped around. He saw the children who had been sleeping in the village chief's home, now plugging their noses from the intense smell as they approached. What are you doing? Asked Mira, acting as a representative for them all. Tyrios answered directly. I'm burning the bodies. If I don't, the disease may spread. The green rot wasn't transmitted through plants or animals, but its ability to spread from corpses was concerning. The dragon marrow potion I let you all drink increased your vitality and it heals most diseases, but its effects will wear off in a few days. I believe you should have resistance to the disease now that you've been treated for it, but there is a chance you could catch it again if the bodies are left as they are. Ah! The children trembled in terror at being told they could suffer the same misery again. This is why I am planning to burn them, stated Tyrios. That isn't a problem in your faith, is it? Our faith? Asked Mira, confused. It would appear not, said Tyrios, relieved. He then explained. Followers of the god of Earth, Ceres, believe that by returning to their mother, the Earth, after death, they can be reborn as humans in the afterlife. For that reason, they are opposed to burning their dead. Really? Yes, that's why when a follower of Ceres commits a serious crime, they are burned alive. Their leftover bones aren't even buried. They just get thrown away in a field, continued Tyrios. Burned alive? Merely imagining it made all the children, not just Mira, pale. Seeing that, the Black Cat smiled maliciously and interjected, It's such a good thing you don't follow Ceres. If you objected to us burning the bodies, we would have had to burn you right alongside them, right, Tyrios? What? The children's shocked, terrified eyes leaped over to Tyrios, and he quickly assuaged. Please don't worry, I would never do that. Are you sure? Asked the Black Cat with a grin. Tyrios glared at her like he had a foul taste in his mouth, then turned back to the gathered corpses and cast a spell. Soil wall. The surface of the ground erupted to form a wall that encircled the bodies on all sides. Now that he had an environment that made it difficult for the flames to escape, he cast another spell. Cremation. A raging fire erupted behind the dirt wall, burning away the mountains of green, spotted bodies in the blink of an eye. The burning pillars, intense flames, stretched towards the sky. In response, the children rubbed their cheeks as the gust of hot air threatened to burn them. Ah, wow. I may have overdone it, said Tyrios. Seeing how the children both admired and shrank from such awesome power, Tyrios scratched his chin as if embarrassed, then suddenly met Mira's eyes as she looked his way. You're an amazing magic user, aren't you, mister? She asked. It's all thanks to my dedication to training, Tyrios said with a smile, flexing his bones in lieu of a bicep. Mira's eyes sparkled in response, and then she suddenly looked down weakly. I wish I could be like that. What was that? He asked. Oh, it's nothing. Something clearly bothered her, but Tyrios didn't inquire further. He turned his eyes back to the column of fire that was burning the green rot away, waiting for the flames to die down before destroying the dirt wall. Countless white human bones scattered across the blackened ground, and the children's expressions twisted in grief. Mommy, Daddy, Uncle Purple just got married this spring. Since their little village had numbered only about 80 people, everyone had known one another. They had worked and lived together like a family. Yet all these people had been rendered indistinguishable, transformed first into horrifying green corpses and now into ivory bones. Tyrios gently addressed the weeping children. I know you're all worried about what will happen to you now that you've lost your parents and grandparents, but please worry not. After that first remark, he faced the mountain of bones and began reciting an incantation. Empty bones devoid of life, take this makeshift soul and move your arms and legs in service of the living. He took more time than when he made the dirt wall on the pillar of fire, drawing mana into his fingertips. Mira stared at them, fascinated by something. Oh, could this be? Thought Terios, at risk of her becoming distracted by the discovery of a surprising prize. But he finished reciting the last of the incantation and completed the spell. Create Bone Golem. The massive amount of mana gathered in his fingertips morphed into a blue light and cascaded over the burned bodies. Or burned bones, like they were being drawn by invisible strings. The bones that had been scattered across the ground cluttered together and connected, forming skeletons that stood as if they still drew breath. 29 in total. Well, that should be plenty. Terios counted the skeletons that came together, which excluded the babies, who were too small, and the elderly, whose bones broke during cremation. Nodding in satisfaction, he turned back to the children and said cheerfully, "Everyone, these will take the place of..." Huh? In complete contrast to Terios, who was about to gleefully launch into an explanation, the children were more disturbed than what they had first laid eyes on him. One of them even fell and lost control of their bowels out of sheer terror. Oh god, they pooped themselves. Even the friendliest of the mirror was frozen in fear, her face white as a sheet. "What?" asked Terios. "Oh, don't look so confused, you moron," rebuked the black cat, disparaging Terios as he fretted over the children's reactions. "Has being dead for 200 years left you that out of touch with living? Just try to imagine how you'd feel if the bones of your friends and family started moving around." I suppose I'd first find a blunt object to use as a weapon. You would, wouldn't you?" The cat smiled as if she enjoyed watching him, but also sighed in exasperation to deftly cover it up. While that might not have clued him in, Terios did realize his mistake. Normal people fear them, I suppose I was so fixated on my goal that I failed to take everyone's feelings into account, he said. "That's how you died, too. Guess you haven't improved at all." Ugh. The cat's sneer bugged the hell out of him, but since she was correct, he couldn't make a comeback. Gritting his teeth, he decided to give up on an argument he had no chance of winning. Then he looked at the children and spoke as kindly as he could manage. "Everyone, please calm down and listen to me. These bone golems won't hurt you. Actually, I've designed them to protect you from fighting and hunger." And obviously they don't say anything. Doubt showed on their silent faces. He may have saved their lives, but the sight of the villagers' bones walking about was way too much for them to trust him. Was too much for him to trust him readily. Given the state they're in, will they even listen to me if I explain? Mira, perhaps having sensed that Terios was at a loss, hesitantly asked, "You made them for us?" "Yes, I did." At least she would listen to him. He felt relief well up inside him that started to go into a detailed explanation. "So, as you may have already noticed, you all are the only people I was able to save from the green rot. Now that this village has lost its adults, the workers, it will end up utterly destroyed. Even if we asked people from other places to come and help, no one would want to come to a village that was ravaged by the disease." Oh no. The children were already grieving the loss of their friends and family, and now Terios was twisting the knife with the cruel truth. After that, he quietly asked, "Everyone, do you want this village to be destroyed?" "No," replied Mira without a moment's delay. "Creo Village is where we all live together. I don't want it to go away." Beyond being sad at the loss of her hometown, she probably also feared the very real possibility of losing her life's foundation. "Mama's gone, and if I lose the village too, I won't..." Lacking relatives to depend on, she had nowhere else to go. Dying on the wayside was her only alternative. At the sight of Mira hanging her head, the other children started whispering to one another. "My uncle lives in the next village, but he's not nice. He's probably mean to me. Besides, are there any villages who would want to take in kids like us who are sick? No one would even believe us if we tell them we were cured. No matter how much they talked, they couldn't imagine a bright future for themselves. The real problem was that no one would want to help a bunch of children who were nearly killed by the green rot, but saved by a strange monster that gave them a potion. It was all way too creepy. Which means you've got no choice but to stay here in this village on the brink of collapse," said the cat, her whiskers twitching in a smile almost like she was giving condolences. "That is why you need those bone golems," said Terios. He held up his hand, and the 29 golems snapped to attention at once. As you can see, they act in accordance with my commands. They can't do complicated tasks, but they can harvest the crops or protect the fields from animals in place of the people who have died. "And then?" asked Mira. "Creo Village will survive thanks to their labor, of course," shouted Terios with a thump on his chest, while Mira's eyes showed the glimpse of hope. "And unlike humans, bone golems have no need for food or sleep. They can work 24 hours a day without rest. They will liberate you from farm work, giving you an even richer life than before. Still, the children will be responsible for a number of tasks, like cooking, because the bone golems had limited intelligence and, like Tyrios, no sense of taste. Even so, the labor of the bone golems would more than make up for the absence of the adults. How is that? Isn't it wonderful? Silence. Even as Tyrios addressed them proudly, the children remained silent, mixed emotions plastered over their faces. On a logical level, they understood that they would need the bone golems to continue living in the village without adults. However, they probably couldn't overcome the instinctive disgust at creations that used the bones as their friends and family. What a pickle, thought Tyrios, a finger to his chin. Using the labor bone golems wasn't just to keep this village afloat, it was the first stepping stone towards his ultimate goal of creating a peaceful world. After all, most conflict started over hunger. Someone close to dying of hunger might steal bread even if it meant killing. Others may revolt in the face of being starved to death by high taxes. A country could also raid another country's villages just to feed its own military. When extreme circumstances pushed people to the brink of starvation, they would abandon their morals and open themselves to murder. Conversely, that meant most conflicts wouldn't occur if people had access to enough food that they weren't concerned about dying. As the old saying goes, well fed, well bred. People can't be expected to be their best in an environment that warps them into starving beasts. Okay, I think I might end this off here. Let's see. Okay, I'll see you guys next time.